Faith FM. If you missed our first hour, you have to go back and you have to find the podcast because you heard here firsthand a psalm written over 3,000 years ago that helps you deal with frustrations against the government. You are not going to find that content anywhere else then, I don't think.
Yeah.
So if you missed that, you can catch it up on our podcasts that are going to be published later today.
On the Faith FM website.
Yes, or on our Faith FM website as well. Let's get into a quiz question here first, and then we are going to get into the good news segment here. Dan is going to tell us about a time a peacock saved a bunch of children from deadly cobras. Okay, please, Tish, tell us, what is the new quiz question?
Okay, so this is our second question for the day, and it is, what was David not allowed to build because he had shed much blood? What was David not allowed to build because he had shed much blood? We have one correct answer, two correct answers here. If you think you also know the correct answer, let us know. 0491 064 669.
This is an incredible story, actually. Like the surroundings about it. We might be able to expand on it a little bit more.
If we expand on it now, we'll give it away.
We give it away, yeah, so we won't.
So we can't do that.
Okay, so then.
Yeah.
Give me the case here. Why should I get peacocks now?
Okay, you should get peacocks if you have baby snakes in your garden. Do you have baby snakes in your garden?
Look, I haven't seen any as of yet. And I don't think I am in a particularly snake-prone area. But look, everything's possible.
So we actually have had both baby snakes and peacocks in our yard. But anyway, that's another story. The good news story that I wanted to share this morning is there's a school in Bangalore in India where there was an outbreak of baby cobras. So probably, there was one or two mother cobras that had, hatched a bunch of babies. And with a whole heap of baby cobras on the school campus, they were really worried for their kids that, there'd be snake bites and potentially even deaths and snake bites, cobra bites in India is it's a thing like that. It happens regularly. Thankfully, there's hospitals and anti-venom and whatever. But yeah, they were praying for a solution. This was a church school, an Adventist Seventh-day Adventist church school in Bangalore in India, and the school is called Sunshine Children's Home. I'm getting the story actually it's called The Inside Story, and it's in the 20 Million Movements Bible Study Guides, where we'll be going to later for our Bible study on Philippians and Colossians. At the end of every week, there is this inside story that shares.
The stories are really amazing.
They
actually.
are. And
really
anyway,
awesome.
We'll get to the resolution of these snakes, we'll plug this inside story. It is a great encouragement for our faith.
It would be worrying. I have some friends that ran orphanages or helped to manage orphanages in India.
Yeah,
and one of the stories that they told me is that every night when they tuck the kids into their beds, they actually had a double iron gate locked with like massive padlocks.
Why did they do that?
Not because there were any risk of the children escaping, because the children love it there, but because of the risk of the kids being kidnapped.
Oh, man.
There is a lot of children's kidnappings happening in India. And unfortunately, these kidnaps are, they're going to... Kidnappers do the absolutely worst imaginable things with children, from transforming them into slaves of all kinds, if you know what I mean.
Organ harvesting, yeah.
All the way into, human sacrifice for ritual practices.
Oh, man.
So,
yeah. And I guess orphanages are easier to target because, well, maybe there's no parents that will be chasing accountability.
And the persecution against Christians, well, worldwide, but in India, has been increasing a lot as well. So
yeah.
But
anyway,
this is a new threat, new fear unlocked. Now baby cobras on top of everything.
And locks and gates can't keep baby cobras out of the school. So they were praying for a solution, and they tried snake catchers, but the snake catchers couldn't really chase the baby snakes in this rural school because there's orchards of all sorts of fruit trees and whatever.
They're hard to find.
They used to be like snake catchers are used to finding snakes in built environments, like where you can chase a snake into a corner and it can't get away. But out in nature, snakes can go in any direction, and the snake catchers weren't able to really reduce the population at all. So they were continuing to be concerned and pray for a solution. And then, amazingly, the staff saw a peacock on the campus. And not just one peacock, but a male peacock and a female. And it ended up a few peacocks came.
Out of the blue, out of nowhere.
And and there hadn't been any peacocks sighted at this school for decades. And all of a sudden these peacocks come. And peacocks are known to eat cobras, to eat venomous snakes. And and so the peacocks came and the baby cobras disappeared. God took care of the need of that
amazing.
School through his creation.
So were these wild peacocks?
Yeah. Apparently, I mean,
they just showed up at the school grounds and ate all of the snakes.
Yeah. So God uses His creation to bless us, and we have actually we haven't had peacocks come to eat baby snakes on our property, as far as we're aware. Although we did see peacocks maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago from a neighbour's place who lives maybe almost 500 metres from our place. Their peacocks came onto our property, and we had a guest, and we were giving them a tour of our farm and the animals. And all of a sudden, for the first time in the whole 6 years we've been on our property, we see these peacocks over there. We're like, oh, bonus! There's peacocks. They're from the neighbour, but anyway, and they're white peacocks too. So,
oh, beautiful! Yeah. They're gorgeous.
Yeah. Anyway, and we have had baby snakes. We've seen a couple of baby brown snakes on our property. Thankfully, they moved on. But God does use animals and His creation to bless us. And there's a couple of other instances of this that I'd like to call out as well. We have a little puppy, a brand new puppy, who got to meet your dog earlier in the week.
Yes, I met your puppy. He's very cute.
And puppies are hard to train. We've got a particular breed of dog that is quite stubborn and strong-willed, and it's hard to get the right mix of positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement. Mm-hmm. We just leave it to our other dog. No, we don't entirely leave it to the other dog, but the other dog actually can just get in there at the right moment to give a sharp bark or growl, and the little puppy just rolls on its back and submits.
Oh, I love it. My dog does exactly like that. Sometimes I look at him and he's kind of used to it. I look at him with the eye. He just rolls on his back and submits.
So yeah, God uses creation in ways that humans are unable to do the things that God's creation can do. Even interesting, we were listening to the news report earlier this morning, and there's a report of a new drug which is able to overturn, to reverse organ failure in cases of sepsis. And it's interesting, that drug came from a natural compound of cellulose, I understand. I might be getting this wrong. But so it was developed. It's been engineered, but it started with a natural product, a natural carbohydrate-based cellulose product that scientists were able to modify and use to treat organ failure during sepsis. So yeah, this is significant news, and it comes from an Australian university, Griffith, and so a lot of drugs actually come from natural sources. That's right, plants or animals even, and
isolate the specific compound
that God has created in the beginning for our benefit, for our blessing, and so the blessings that God can bring through nature, through animals, through plants, is just amazing. And I really want to plug that if you want good news stories, get them from the Bible study guides that we use here on our breakfast show. every day as we go through the 20 million movement. At the end of each week in the Bible study guide, and we don't often get a chance to highlight this story, but it's every week. There is an inside story, and there's great news from somewhere around the world as to how God is working. Do you read these stories, the inside story?
I often read.
Yeah.
I often read. I haven't been reading them for a while, but I always enjoy reading them.
And how can
I have to start reading them again this year.
Yeah. How can our listeners find them?
Well, you can text us here with hashtag 20 million, and we can send you a PDF for this entire quarter's worth of studies, and it will come with all of these insider stories.
And if you want to know where to find them on the internet, you can just search the Sabbath School study guide, and you'll find the inside story there. But we can send you the link or the PDF.
That's right. We can send you the link, we can send the PDF, or you can just go online and look for sabbath.school. Sabbath with double B, SABBATH.school. Then I am really grateful. I really enjoy listening stories about snake-eating birds. Not that I don't like snakes, but sometimes they can be a worry, particularly if you have children around. I have once seen a kookaburra eating a baby snake.
Yeah.
And I said, I didn't know that kookaburras, targeted snakes, so that was a good thing to know. But my number one favorite bird, snaking bird in the world, is it's a small little hawk called acawan. And acawan, it occurs in Brazil, in the northeast of Brazil. I think it's an endemic species just to Brazil, if I'm not mistaken. But the cool thing about the acawan is that about 80% of its diets come from snakes. Because the thing is about peacocks and other birds that eat snakes. Usually snakes are just, maybe they make up less than 10%, of their nutrition. Usually they are, more focused on lizards or geckos or other, insects or other animals. But acawan, I think it's the bird that has the highest snake eating ratio of all birds. About 80 to 90% of their diet consists in snakes. So maybe we could,
import some of them.
And see what happens.
We actually have, on our property, we have guinea fowl, and guinea fowl are excellent at snake control. They make a huge racket and make a fuss, and the snakes run away from guinea fowl. So since we've had guinea fowl, which is the majority of the time that we've not been on the property, we have maybe not seen any snakes, or if we have, very few.
I have heard about guinea fowls being effective snake controls, and until I went to my friend's property and I saw a snake eating their guinea fowl.
Oh no, okay, no.
In the tree, but maybe that was just a one-off.
That's no good.
Very good, very good. Well, thanks for bringing that story, and thanks for reminding me where to find these stories then, because I think that they are very, very uplifting. We're now going to be listening to a song by Neville Peter, I Will Trust in You, and after that song, we're going to be looking at the latest report by Open Doors regarding persecution against Christians in the world. Stay tuned.
You're listening to the Breakfast Show podcast on Faith FM. Positively different.
Getting to the answer to the previous quiz question, and after that, we're going to be talking about Christian persecution around the world. So please, producer Tish.
So the question was, what was David not allowed to build because he had shed much blood? And the answer was the temple.
The temple.
We can find this in 1 Chronicles 22, verse 8.
One of the things that I found curious and interesting about that story is that when David expressed his intentions to build God a tabernacle temple, one of God's prophets, Nathan, came to David and said, look, David, do according to all that's in your heart. And then Nathan gets back home. God gives him a vision during that night, and it says, hey, Nathan, go back to David and tell him that, do not build the temple. I don't want him to build the temple. His son will be building the temple, but he's not allowed to. It's interesting that God did not tell David specifically, you shall not build the temple because you have too much blood in your hands. David came to that conclusion later on when he was talking to Solomon, and he says, God did not allow me to build the temple because I had too much blood in my hands.
Right.
He figured it out.
Yeah.
Interesting story. Okay.
Despite the temple being a place of shedding of blood.
Yeah, not of human blood, though.
Yeah.
Okay, Daniel, I have some concerning news, but at the same time, prophetic. Let's see what you are going to make of this.
Yeah.
Open Doors, it's a non-for-profit that tracks levels of persecution against Christians worldwide, and since 2014. So they're marking 12 years now, and they have this list with the 50 countries where the level of persecution against Christians is the highest. It's a very famous. A lot of people, even policymakers, use those resources to inform their policies, to inform, for example, travel advice and so on. However, just a couple of days ago, they have released their updated 2026 list, which of course refers to 2025. And they, since the beginning of their measuring the persecution against Christians worldwide, 2025 reached the highest levels of persecution against Christians since they started recording this data.
Yeah, right.
So we are at an all-time high. And 388 million Christians are facing high levels of persecution. So that does not include the West. That does not include, Great Britain, for example, telling people that they are not allowed to pray in their homes. This is not considered persecution, even though it is a toiling of the freedom of religion. This is nowhere near the level of persecution that this metric is being recorded.
So when it says, and this is a question, I'm looking at the website, opendoors.org, when it says 1 in 7 Christians are persecuted worldwide. Yeah, so when all
this 388
7
represents 1 in 7 Christians worldwide.
So all 7 out of 7 Christians will receive some persecution, as in ridicule or opposition from a parent or a spouse or something.
That's right.
But we're not talking about that. What is the definition of persecution?
Okay, there's 3 kinds of persecutions here that they are mentioned, but 2 specific kinds.
Yep.
There is squash persecution and there's squeeze persecution. Squash persecution is violent and physical attacks against Christians.
Right.
So meaning that, Christians are being decapitated or Christians are being thrown to jail. This is squashing. This is what they call squash persecution. Squeezing is the government is going to make sure that because you're a Christian, your life is going to be made extremely hard and difficult. For example, they're going to come down and close your church down.
Yeah, right.
Or they're not going to allow you to download Bible apps in your phone.
Right. Okay.
Or you're not going to allow to receive hospital services if you're a Christian in your city.
Yeah.
This is what they call squeeze. They're basically pressuring you up so that you give up on being a Christian. Let's talk about some of these numbers here, because there's some very interesting insights. So 388 million Christians, this is an increase of more than 8 million compared to last year. About 380 million Christians last year, 2024, were recorded. Most of that is concentrated in sub-Saharan Africa, which is home to 14 of the 50 countries in the list. And in Africa, Nigeria is the top offender. The top persecutor against Christians. Particularly, Nigeria holds the record of the highest number of Christians killed because of their faith. 4,849 Christians were killed just because they were Christians, but nothing else, in 2025 in Nigeria. And that is a significant increase from the previous period, which saw 3,490 Nigerians. So that's like over 1,300 more killings than that. Now, another country that is worthwhile highlighting here is Somalia. Somalia is labeled the second most dangerous country for Christians in the world.
On Nigeria, it's Christians make up almost half of the country of Nigeria, and yet there's 5,000 Christians killed, persecuted last year.
That's right.
That's crazy.
And this has been some brawls between Fulani herdsmen, Islamic militias, which they're basically herdsmen. They have overgrazed their own pastures, so they mostly try to invade and take Christian lands that belong to in Christian regions, and so that they can get pasture for their sheep. And a lot of Nigerians accuse the government, who is led by Muslim leaders, to that they are turning a blind eye in many cases here. So that there's a lot of perplexity and anxiety happening in Nigeria at the moment. Second most dangerous country in the world for Christians, Somalia. There's actually a report here from Awais Ali, which is the son of a Muslim cleric who converted to Christianity, and he tells the kind of violence that Christians face there. So this is what he says, and I quote, Somali Christians are among the most extremely persecuted in the world. You could be sitting in a cafeteria, enjoying your meal, and somebody could come and attempt to decapitate you to cut your head off. Just like that. Imagine you're sitting down there with your family and all of a sudden someone finds out or knows that you're a Christian and they feel justified to cut your head out in public.
With no repercussions?
No repercussions, yeah.
Yeah, wow.
So the next one is Syria. Syria actually has achieved the highest ever score in the ranking system, and it has achieved the most significant single-year increase in Christian persecution. It is very interesting because Syria just had a change of government. And the new government, the leaders, they are part of a militant Islamist group called Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. And they were the ones who took over when the Assad regime has collapsed. Interestingly, that group said that once they got into power, they said that Syrians could worship freely and different faith persuasions would have a seat at the table. So they had a very conciliatory, discourse. And yet persecution among Christians increased since they took office. What happened here? What people are seeing is that probably it's not necessarily the hand of the central government, but it's because there is a weaker rule of law. There has been a lot of vacuums of power, and a lot of extremists are claiming that impunity and taking the opportunity and the advantage to persecute and oppress Christians. So that's the problem. There is a power vacuum. Now, we're talking here about, as I mentioned, smash persecution. I said squash, but the term that they use is smash persecution.
Okay. Yeah.
Now let's have a couple of examples here of squeeze persecution, which is also on the increase and making life very, very hard for Christians around the world.
So would we see Western countries make that list for squeeze persecution?
No.
So even though there's
no Western country barely is making that list. So we're talking about.
So we're not talking about the sorts of squeezing that we might experience in our workplace.
No, absolutely not. And actually, Ryan Brown, who is the CEO of Open Doors, say that the kind of persecution that these Christian brothers and sisters that they are looking at, it has no comparison with the kind of persecutions that, yes, we can be facing in the West. We are seeing some cultural shifts and more antagonism against Christians and ideas, but this is like nothing compared to the actual persecution that they are talking about. The Chinese government last year.
I'm not sure whether to say that's good to know or that's really sad for what's, just how bad it is.
Look, I think it helps us to sympathize and see to them. Absolutely. So let's talk about squeeze persecution here. So the Chinese government on September 25 last year, they rolled out a list of guidelines about 18 rules governing the online behavior of Christians and religious expressions. So Christians in China, they are not allowed to broadcast any live videos with religious or Christian intent. So look at the words that I'm saying, not even Christian content, but Christian intent.
Yeah, right.
So if they're sniffing the slightest shred of Christian intent, you can go to jail.
Yeah, wow.
Access to Bible apps was made illegal in China, and more and more churches that are not validated by the unregistered churches have been closed down. So the only churches basically that you can have in China are the ones that are officially approved by the Communist Party, which include the Triple C Church, the Chinese Christian Church, which is a very watered down version of some kind of Catholicism, but with very much adulterated Bibles. And, part of the 10 Commandments is, thou shalt not worship Western ideologies and so on. That's the level of indoctrination we're talking about. And finally, the most oppressive country in the world to be a Christian, North Korea. And North Korea has innovated in their persecution of Christians. Now the reports that we're getting from them is that they're using more and more artificial intelligence to identify suspicious behavior patterns that might indicate that someone is a Christian believer. So Christians in North Korea are very cautious about how they live out and express their Christianity. So the North Korean government, knowing this, they raise the temperature of their crackdown, of their persecution and the oppression against Christians. And they're using AI systems to monitor the everyday aspect lives. And if the AI system now even suspects that there's anything Christian about that person, it is enough to launch an investigation, incarceration, imprisonment, spending years and years in forced labor camps. So that's North
crazy.
Korea for you. So there is a list of what to pray for these brothers and sisters compiled by Open Doors. If you would like to have access to that list, you can go to opendoors.org, or you can text me here with hashtag Open Doors, and I'll send that list straight to you.
You're listening to the Breakfast Show podcast on Faith FM. Positively different.
It's time for our interview now. We have Rob Stanton. He's a mortgage broker, and he's going to tell us what to do, and what's happening in the mortgage space, interest rate space here in Australia. Before we talk to him about it, though, I have to introduce him because he's my good friend and he is an excellent runner. I was just learning. Is that right, Rob?
In relative terms.
Look, relative terms.
Relative to all of us, definitely excellent runner.
Yes, from what I'm hearing here, you're some elite athlete there. But let me just tell you, Rob, because I inscribed myself, I registered myself for, or I'm planning to a Sydney half marathon in May. So I know who I'm going to be calling for some tips. It's going to be my
That's
first
a bit
one.
further than I like to run these days.
Rob, tell us a little bit about yourself. So what is it that you do, and what's going on in the mortgage world at the moment here in Australia?
Yeah, so I'm a mortgage broker. I help people get loans so they can buy houses. And the mortgage market at the moment, as I'm sure everyone's seen on the news and and everywhere, is a bit crazy because the housing prices are really high and it's kind of hard to get into the market. So I enjoy my job because I get to help people who otherwise probably would struggle to navigate the system. Achieve property ownership.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about that system here, because a lot of people may think, hey, why do I need a mortgage broker? There's so many websites this day and age. I can go just to check in a couple of banks or some aggregators and just apply there. Why would I need it? What are some of the hidden challenges there that people often don't consider when they are applying for a mortgage?
Yeah, when you apply directly with a bank, you're talking to one bank with one set of rules, and that's very restrictive. I have clients who say, I went to my bank and they said I can borrow $300,000. How can that be? And I look at their info and I say, well, that's because this bank is not treating your income like these banks, and you can actually borrow $600,000 if we go to the right bank for your circumstances. So mortgage brokers have traditionally 40-odd lenders. I've got 40 lenders on my panel, which each have different strengths and each fit different scenarios.
Okay, so so each bank has a very unique system and ways of looking at your income and terms and conditions that it can offer. Can you tell us a little bit about what's the variation from bank to bank? What is different? It's not just like getting some money, repaying it with a certain interest rates. What are the variable things that some bank offers that others don't?
Yeah, so in terms of income, that's a big thing. Some will take your casual income at 100%, others will take it at 80%, others won't touch it at all. There's also expenses. Some will assume that you're spending double what other banks assume, given your circumstances. So there's some of the things that impact, how much you can borrow. In terms of interest rates, each bank has their own interest rates. Another great reason to use a broker is that we can get the best rate from, one of 40 lenders, not just the best rate that bank you walk into is going to offer you. And on the flip side, when you've got that loan, the bank just take you for granted, of course. They lock you in and hope that you never leave. We can keep reviewing it and say, well, actually, they need to offer you this, or we'll go somewhere else in 2 years' time.
That's very interesting, Rob. It looks like it's a lot of work here trying to that you're trying to help your clients to save some money here. So, Rob, can you tell me a little bit about what has been happening in interest rates? If you give us maybe a small little history from what you have seen in your career as a mortgage broker, because I remember some people saying, "Hey, 3% a year, interest rates was for mortgages not too long ago, and now it went up to 7-8% and then came down again." So, can you give us a little bit of what happened in that roller coaster of interest rates and what is likely to happen in the future?
Yeah, we certainly went through a roller coaster during and post COVID. So interest rates were down around 2%. The really good rates in 2021, I think that was the absolute peak, or as in the trough, I suppose, if you're talking about interest rates. Peak lending.
Yeah.
And then of course, that was unsustainable because it's based on the cash rate, so the rate that the banks borrow from the government essentially at, and that was at zero, close enough to zero. They were getting free money and then they were charging 2% to you and I. At the moment, that's 3.6%, the bank's cost of lending, and they're charging a really good rate is about 5.3. So the reason that the RBA, who control that rate that the banks get their money at, the reason they lower or raise rate, the main reason is inflation. So cost of living. You go to Coles and you buy that milk and it's $2 today and it's $2.50 tomorrow because of inflation. So they're saying, oh, that's going up too fast. We need to put interest rates up because that'll stop everyone spending their money. And that's what they did, because obviously post-COVID there was a lot of cash floating around. A lot of people got cash handouts and things like that, and people were spending on whatever. There was a lot of internet buys during those lockdowns and things like that. So they said, well, we need to put rates up pretty quick. They did so, and then they were probably too high. People weren't spending enough money. The economy was kind of going down too fast. And now we've got to a point where they've cut rates a few times and they're kind of sitting. They're sitting and watching because inflation's not quite where they want it to be, but the economy is also not strong enough for them to put rates up yet.
Oh, I see. So you mentioned that 5.3% is a really good rate today. So let's say that our listener is currently paying, let's say 1 percentage point more than that, 6.3%. What can they do about it?
Well, they can ask their lender for a better rate. That's a nice, easy question to ask. Obviously, if they're paying 6.3%, that's a lot over what they should be paying. So there's either going to be a difficult circumstance there, like they're self-employed, they don't have tax returns, things like that, or they're getting ripped off. But yeah, they can speak to a mortgage broker rather than just putting all their eggs in one basket with one bank. They can talk to a broker. There's brokers all over the country, and just say, hey, this interest rate seems high. Here's my circumstances. What do you think I can achieve?
Interesting. And what about some banks, they offer variable rates versus fixed rates. What is what, and which one should we choose?
Yeah, very interesting, and really connects to the interest rate discussion we had a moment ago. So the fixed rates are fully based on predictions that the banks make about where the interest rates are going to go. So fixed rates 4 months ago were in the fours, like 4.8 was a pretty good fixed rate, because all the banks thought, okay, interest rates are going to keep going down. Mm-hmm. Now fixed rates are pushing above the variable rate. A lot of banks are around 5.5 because they're saying, well, we think the next interest rate move might be up. So if you fix right now, that you fix for 2 years. You've got that rate locked in for 2 years. If you're variable and the RBA puts rates up, the banks will follow, and you'll pay a higher rate than you currently do. That's the difference is security. But at the moment, I think variable rates are pretty well lower than fixed rates for most banks, and I don't see a lot of value in that because I think the RBA will hold. I don't think they'll increase rates at all this year. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't pay more now.
Yeah, and we know that this is actually there's always a tension. We have seen some tension here between the Prime Minister, the federal government, and the RBA in terms of saying, hey, why don't you lower down? Because particularly the Treasurer, why don't you lower down these interest rates? But same thing in the United States. President Donald Trump, is complaining that the Fed chairman is keeping the rates for too high for too long. But at the same time, the central banks are pushing back and saying, hey, look, I know that it's going to be great for you to put the rates down because people will feel richer. But at the same time, that can get some really big unintended consequences here in the form of inflation for everyone.
Inflation, exactly. On inflation, though, I like to look at inflation with rose-tinted glasses sometimes as a mortgage broker. The added benefit of inflation is that you've got $1 million loan now. In 15 to 20 years, that $1 million feels like 500,000.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So that as an asset owner, inflation has a silver lining.
Yeah.
So long as wages are growing as well as expenses.
Yeah. So long as wages continue to grow at their
and
traditional
follow.
rates,
Mm-hmm.
which are fairly on par with inflation, and I look at it like, hey, if you're a renter, your rent has doubled in that time, and your money's worth half. But if you had a mortgage, your repayments are still the same, and your house has doubled in price. So that's the rent versus buy discussion. I just think all the metrics point to if you can get into a property, the security of that is going to hold you well.
Yes, absolutely. And Rob, what do you say is like, for a person that is starting to plan, they are starting to think about buying a house, they're starting to save up some money. What are some of the practical things that they can do, let's say, maybe 6 months prior to applying for a home loan? Is there any homework that they can do to get the best possible outcomes later on?
I think so. I mean, the number one thing is save. That deposit's important. There's no getting around that these days. 5% is all they need plus stamp duty if they're over the thresholds, which is a whole other discussion. But you've got to save that money. And other than that, probably, I know this sounds self-serving, but probably talk to a mortgage broker because there's more than I can say in 30 seconds. It's really kind of getting all your ducks in a row and knowing what they are. And I speak to first home buyers every day, and they start with zero idea, and 15 minutes later they know exactly what they need to do. So that's not self-seeking. It doesn't have to be me. It can be any broker, but yeah.
Absolutely. And look, how much would a typical mortgage broker charge you? Is that a fee for service that you're paying? How does it work?
Yes, some brokers charge fees. A lot don't. I don't charge fees, and I'd say the majority don't. If we write a loan for you, we'll get paid by the bank, a commission. So it's zero out of pocket for the customer.
Which helps a lot because buying a house is already a very, very big financial commitment already. So
it's massive. Yeah, the government certainly take their slice with stamp duty. So certainly I would look for a fee-free broker if you're a first-home buyer. And if you get a good broker, they'll also be able to give you advice on properties and things like that because they have experience in all of these areas. So, it's a good place to start.
Absolutely. Rob Stanton, thank you so much for helping us to understand some of the ins and outs of the mortgage world. And we're looking forward to have you again with us another time here on the show.
Thanks for being a part of the Faith FM family. Join our community on Facebook or get in touch at 1-800-FAITH-FM.